Whether you're at the beginning of your journey, in the middle of an amazing climb, or crossing the finish line, CLA is there to help you experience the rush of success. At CLA, we promise to know you and help you. We exist to create opportunities.
Wealth advisory, outsourcing, audit, tax, and consulting.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm Dan McGowan from the Boston Globe's Rhode Island Bureau, and I'm really looking forward to this hour-long conversation about how small businesses can kind of save Rhode Island's economy, post-pandemic economy. And we have a really great group of panelists. We're going to try to have a very thoughtful discussion over the next hour or so. What I want to do right off the top, though, is introduce you to Brian Renstrom from CLA. CLA is our sponsor for this event, and we really appreciate that. You know, the Globe in Rhode Island is still very new. You know, we're about to hit our 2-year anniversary in June. We're only a couple of weeks away. And, our entire role here in Rhode Island, we believe, is to kind of elevate the conversation, have important discussions about big topics that sometimes aren't getting covered everywhere else. And so events like this one, and hopefully, knock on wood, we're going to be able to do this in person very soon. We think that fulfills our mission in many ways. So let me introduce you to Brian for a couple of comments, and we'll get things started.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate it. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Very good. Thanks, Dan. Again, my name is Brian Renstrom. I'm the Rhode Island Office Managing Principal at Clifton Larson Allen, otherwise known as CLA. As one of the nation's leading professional services and business advisory firms, CLA is proud to serve as the presenting sponsor of this important discussion that's going to concern the challenges and opportunities facing Rhode Island's small business community as we continue to recover from COVID-19. On behalf of CLA, I'd like to thank Governor McKee, Kristen Adamo, and Jennifer Ortiz for adding their respective voices to our panel today. I also like to thank Dan McGowan and the Boston Globe and the Rhode Island team for putting this event together, so I appreciate that. As many of you may or may not be aware, this year CLA joined forces with my prior firm, Bloom Shapiro. We were the largest regional accounting and advisory firm in New England, and now we're part of the 8th largest accounting firm in the United States. We provide areas of focus in wealth advisory, outsourcing, audit, tax, and consulting. We have over 200,000 clients now, with over 7,000 people in 130 offices. All are dedicated to creating opportunities for our clients and our people in our communities in which we serve. You know, one of the reasons we joined CLA is because of their rich heritage in private business. That's Bloom Shapiro's heritage as well. And that, we continue to provide a high level of service and quality to those clients. And that's why we were very happy to sponsor this event today, because it's near and dear to our hearts. While you may not have heard of the CLA brand here in Rhode Island, hopefully this event and some others, you'll start to hear that. Our team has been on this in Rhode Island for decades. We're more committed now than ever to providing you, our local clients, with the personal service you need and deserve and have grown accustomed to getting. We're proud to provide these services across New England as well as in Rhode Island. As far as today's event, with more than 98% of local business here in Rhode Island qualifying as small business, you're fortunate to be home to be a strong, vibrant, diverse, and small business community. Obviously, this community has been dealt an exceptionally difficult hand over the past year, but it's found a way to continue moving forward through hard work, innovation, and creativity. We know that because we see it firsthand in our clients here. Today, our panel is going to be asked the question, can small business save Rhode Island's post-pandemic economy? As a firm that works side by side with countless small business owners covering virtually every sector of Rhode Island's economy, we have confidence that the answer to this question will and must be a resounding yes. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dan and get the conversation started, and I'll come back on at the end. But we hope you enjoy the conversation, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity or two along the way as we discuss topics. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Folks, I want to just quickly introduce our panelists, and then we're going to get right into the conversation. So, of course, Governor McKee needs no introduction. He's our 76th governor and has had a whirlwind 2021. After really being, I think, in 2020 as lieutenant governor, the voice of small businesses, I think, in this state, or the voice for small businesses in this state, by putting together Facebook Live panels and weekly discussions and really advocating for a lot of our small businesses. I think Governor McKee really stepped it up last year and has tried to do so in his now brief time as governor. I'm sure that's going to be a top focus of his. So you, of course, know Governor McKee. Our two other panelists are equally lovely. Jennifer Ortiz, somebody I've known for a really long time. She's been a small business owner running what is now Executive Cuts, but a hair salon in a couple of different places in downtown Providence. She cuts my lovely head, which is not maybe an endorsement, but Jen is somebody who I think personifies what a small business owner in this state is, right? She's somebody who grew up here in Providence, went to Providence schools, lives in Providence, and has had to really make ends meet by working very, very hard in an industry that is, of course, incredibly important, but relies heavily on downtown activity, things like that. So Jennifer's going to talk a lot about that. And of course, I think a lot of folks who are watching today know Kristen Adamo. Kristen is the head of the Providence Warwick Convention, the Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau, mouthful, Kristen. And the reason why we're so excited to talk to Kristen is, look, we're about to have what will hopefully look like a relatively normal summer. But I really am looking forward to hearing from you about what we can do, what we can do with organizations here, what travel is going to look like and tourism is going to look like. So thank you, all three of you, for being here. I want to get started, and let's just be very quick with this. There's a lot of negative that we can talk about over the last year. It's been very hard, but Governor, starting with you, I really want you to tell us something that you're excited about or you've been excited about in the small business world over the last year. What has motivated you? What have you seen that has really worked?
Well, I think you're right. It goes back to when I was Lieutenant Governor last year and opened up just a phone call to many of the businesses that we had visited, right? You know that we've been in all 39 cities and towns visiting. If we went to one type of business, whether it's a manufacturer, a farm, or a used car dealer, we visited one in every community. So we had a good nucleus there, Dan, to work off of. But the thing that I'm just so optimistic about is that when I just put out my cell phone number, Jen called, other people called, and as a result, we have this Rhode Island Small Business Coalition. Jen hosted 2 press conferences, one during the summer when we put out a petition to really put out the cry for help for our small business community, and Jen hosted that at her shop, and then we just had another announcement in terms of as a governor that we just put out over $20 million in $5,000 grants. We exceeded the number. I think we're up close to 5,000, Dan. So I think the combination of those, one is the response from our small businesses to create a coalition with close to 2,000 members that are registered on it, gives us a great deal of hope that we're going to have a large group of small businesses that are collectively organized in a way to really help in our state move forward on small businesses. And I think that an example of that is that we turned around over 5,000 applications for those $5,000 grants for businesses that did $1 million or less comparatively from 2019 to 2020 in a very short period of time. 2 weeks, 5,000, and we're already starting to get the money out to the small businesses. So I think the thing that is very positive right now is the fact that the small businesses are organized. The general public, I think, based on the work that we did over the year with multiple people, has now recognized how important our small businesses are to the communities. And I think we're positioned really well on immediate issues that we can talk about today that can be done, and then long-term strategies to really solidify this this goal of mine since I was elected Lieutenant Governor, is to have a very strong small business friendly state.
Great, thank you. Jen, Governor McKee talked about sort of being some of the organization that has happened among small businesses. You were a major part of that. So, but I'm curious, is that something that you've seen that has been, a major positive? What's something really good that has happened in the last year?
Well, definitely. We've thanks to the governor, gave me a huge voice for small businesses, and I've just ridden that train all the way to here. The Rhode Island Small Business Coalition formed. We are a 501c6 nonprofit. We're here for all small businesses. I'm not even just a small business, I'm a micro business. It's just me and one other barber. So for me to end up with having such a big voice and having the governor's ear in all of this is a true blessing that COVID has given us. When I was home and didn't know what to do, a friend told me about his cause. I signed on and I haven't signed off since. And it's been weekly. We've been on and we've been working every single week hard. It's amazing how many, business owners I've got to know through all of this, the friendships we've got, to the bond we have, just simple like, hey, I got an email. What does this mean? That's a huge stepping point for somebody that feels that they're all alone in a small business.
That's great. That's great. And yes, more, the more people come together, the more power and influence you have and the more sort of ability you have to push. I think we saw that as Lieutenant Governor McKee kind of convened you all. We were able to nudge people along and get things done. So that was great. Kristen, I feel like the unfortunate thing for your role over the last year has been you get, the email from me about what is not going to happen in Providence this year, or what's not going to happen in Rhode Island. And unfortunately, you had a lot of those announcements. We all saw a lot of those announcements. So I'm curious, was there a bright side? Was there, an optimistic view that you took away from the last year?
Yeah, I mean, the last year and a half, I call it's like Charlie Brown in the football. Lucy Hill's the football and then she pulls it away at the last minute. And I went through basically a year and a half of that. But the thing I really love about Rhode Island is we're scrappy. So we all established these coalitions like the governor and Jen were talking about, whether it be the small business coalition. I worked very closely with the small businesses in the downtown core, working with the Providence Foundation and other groups to really hopefully keep some business in there. Working with partners like Rhode Island Hospitality, Rhode Island Foundation on Buy Local, which was a huge movement that's still going on. And then, I really am going to give a shout out to Commerce RI because we always worked with them, but I must talk to them 2 or 3 times a week. And so I think the silver lining in this is as bad as it has been, I feel like we're going to come out of this stronger because of those synergies and because of those linkages.
That's great. Thank you, Kristen. You use the word scrappy, and the what I think of another word for our small businesses is resilient. I think we've seen businesses like Jen's and so many others be able to just kind of pull through a very difficult time, changing on the fly, not just businesses. We've seen this in schools, things like that. The number one question that I've gotten ever since we announced this event is, of course, the what's next, right? And Governor, I want to start with you. A lot of the incentives or grants, programs, that we've had over the last year have helped save many of our businesses. Jen's is one of them. We've been able to keep things open, generally speaking. A lot of business owners want to know kind of what's next because, even as we are on the tail end of the pandemic, I think there's a lot of folks who are a little bit nervous that, are we going to start talking about, there's all this federal money coming in. Are we going to start talking about, big giant projects, infrastructure, things like that, and almost forget about some of our small businesses? So I'm curious what you can tell small business owners, people watching right now, about what you want to see going forward.
Well, we're not going to forget, Dan, the small businesses, I can guarantee that. And I'll just give you, quickly, I mean, I was raised in a family of small businesses, and my dad and my mom raised us 5 kids on a small business. And then I rode this roller coaster as a small business owner for many years, many more years than I want to admit. But, you know, we went through the banking crisis, we went through the internet bubble, we went through the real estate collapse in 2008, 2009. And we were resilient. My friends that are in small business are resilient. We were, you know, many of us were in the middle of the table, securely in the middle of the table, and got crept very closest to the edge on these during these downturns. And this has been the most drastic downturn or challenge that any of our economy has had, in the small businesses included. So no, we're not going to forget. I think there's some immediate things that we're doing. One is that the grant program I talked about, we're going to get good $20-25 million out to small businesses, 4,000 or 5,000 businesses. That's a relatively big number for Rhode Island. Obviously, we're not helping everyone, but it is a signal we're doing that. I appropriated $30 million that was carryover from the CARES Act dollars that we identified that was appropriated but not allocated. I was talking about those 3 A's all the time. You know, what was appropriated, what was allocated, and what's still available? Well, there was at least 30 million, and we're actually researching right now to see there is even more carryover that can come from 2020. We're ready to do a gift card program, Dan, where we're going to create these dollars that are left over. You know, remember we didn't shut off the applications, even though we said we do 20 million. We didn't shut that off, and I had it designed so that we could do more. We may do $3-4 million, maybe as much as $5 million more, but we'll still have a good amount of dollars left. And we're going to start this reopening strategy where we're going to have these between 50,000 and 100,000 $25 gift cards that we're going to get distributed throughout the municipalities and different organizations, so that we flood the market with people who would go out and get a haircut, right? Or would go to our ice cream shop and buy their family ice cream cones at the local ice cream shop, or go to the flower shop and buy something for their family, or go shop for Father's Day at one of our local shops, right? So we're going to do somewhere between, I think, 50,000 and 100,000, depending on where we are, and we're going to distribute those. So that's like the short term. The long term, and if I could just take a minute of your time here, just to kind of outline. So we're going to continually do those things, but you're right, there is some federal dollars in. We'll be launching the discussion this week on one of our community conversations, as you alluded to, that I did two programs for better part of 10 months every week. One was a small business town hall, virtual town hall. We've done a handoff now to the current Lieutenant Governor, Sabina Matos, who's going to really champion that, and I'm going to assist her. But I also did a community conversation. So we're going to launch off a Rhode Island 2030 effort. And it's going to be, what is Rhode Island going to look like in 2030? And we got the core amount of dollars that we can kind of front end it. And we're going to take a look at, okay, what are our immediate needs? What are our long-term needs? But there will be an economic recovery section with a substantial amount of money that will be in that effort as I propose it to the General Assembly before the end of the session. And I'm working in a meeting with the Senate President and the Speaker. I just had, we have a weekly meeting, dinner in our offices every Monday evening. And we've had that for several weeks now. We're going to continue that. And one of these things is the front and center. Both the Speaker and the Senate President is going to be on that community conversation, talking about what this framework could look like. We haven't got it down yet, but I'll tell you, yesterday was an indication that it is bright. You know, I know that there's a blue chip company in Fidelity, but 500 new jobs, and the expectation there, that filters down to our small businesses. Once we get people back in the office working in downtown Providence and other places, they're going to go and support our small businesses. So the growth of here is really important. And I want to just end with this. I don't think it's a zero-sum game, Dan. I don't think that it's, okay, we're going to do something for the blue chip and then we're not going to do something for the small business. Or we're going to do something for the small business and we're not going to do something for the blue chip. For our economy to really prosper, it needs to be both. It's a combination of both. And then, of course, some of the other you know, with our nonprofits that support the arts and that type of thing, it's all in the same mix. So we got to make sure that we're not picking one over the other. And I think you'll see reflected in this 2030 plan that we're going to be putting together, that it's going to be a mix that's going to be a healthy mix. We don't want to invest in another 38 studios with this money, right? We don't want to take that level of risk. We want to take you know, a very qualified, quantified approach to using these dollars to help launch us into the next decade, understanding that there's going to be a great deal more resources that are going to come our way. So this is just the starter. So I would say, in short, no, we're not going to forget. We have this great opportunity to position Rhode Island as a small business friendly state. And we got the attention because of Jennifer, because of Chris and others, and because of Kristen and others. We got the attention of the people in the state of Rhode Island and the decision makers, and we're going to take full advantage of that.
Thank you, Governor. I want to take a drink because you mentioned 38 studios, which is always what I do.
Okay, yes. Well, we can invest millions and millions of dollars in good, sound ideas. I mean, there's no reason we can't put 100 million or 200 million or more into a good concept, but it's got to be grounded in good data and a future thinking that is actually realistic.
And, you know, I think one, I should say for people watching, I think the governor made a little bit of news there. These $25 gift cards are going to be really interesting to see, you know, how that kind of pans out. Thank you for kind of announcing that there. I'll remind people that, you know, if you're taking your $25 gift card to the local ice cream shop, you should also tip, and don't forget to tip. Jen, the governor talked about this 2030 plan. I think it's really important for you to weigh in here, especially as a business owner in downtown Providence. And you and I talk a lot. And, you know, I think what sometimes people don't necessarily realize is the downtown sort of all of the business sector downtown wasn't exactly, you know, completely vibrant even pre-COVID. You were having challenges even before COVID. Certainly COVID exacerbated that with just across the board, you know, the courts being closed, things like that, people that you rely on, you know, made it really challenging. What do you think it needs to happen for Providence for businesses like yours to be able to kind of continue to thrive? And what should be considered in that 2030 plan?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have over 23 years downtown now. 16 of those years being a small business owner. I just had my 5-year anniversary in this location, and you were with me through it all, Dan. You know the move. You know, I got 4 days notice to move out of my old location, and I found this location. I could have probably closed one day over there and opened the next over here because this location was pretty much ready to go. But because it is the city of Providence, I had to wait 3 weeks just to get my building permit. And even with that, it was, you know, we had to call a friend to pull the strings to get the building permit. It wasn't like I can just go to the city and say, hey, I'm a business owner. I need a building permit. Can I get it today? It doesn't work that way. It's actually really hard to open a business in Providence. That's something that we definitely need to work on. To get a building inspector, I needed my plumbing inspector to come and inspect. And it was, well, I don't feel like walking over there today to inspect you. Like, it shouldn't be, shouldn't have to beg an inspector from the city of Providence to come and inspect me. So those are areas that we definitely need to work on. Everyone's so concerned about the Superman building, and like, yeah, I get it. I was here when it was open. I was a business owner when they closed it. So I know how hard it was losing all those bodies down here, losing all that foot traffic. But we have a lot of other buildings that are going to end up just like the Superman building. My old building is in receivership. People are leaving left and right from that building. And I'm afraid that all of the buildings are going to face a lot of that downtown. Why would you want to come downtown and open a business right now when there isn't the foot traffic? Thankfully, I have my loyal clients as you that I rely on. And yeah, I may have, you know, not shut down with the help of the governor and the grants coming through. But also another thing I had to do as a small business owner is raise my prices. I went from doing 4 haircuts an hour to 1 haircut every 45 minutes. And thankfully, I have not had one complaint. All you guys have been great and big tippers. Like, you know, it makes a big difference. But if I had to do over, I would probably consider not being in downtown anymore, or even just leaving Providence altogether. They make it so hard to be a business owner downtown.
It's a real punch to the stomach, because as somebody who's covered Providence for a really long time, works down here as well, you know, I love the city and I want it to succeed. And I'm sure the governor's going to have thoughts on that. Kristen, I want to move to you a little bit, because again, your world, like we were talking about before, was dramatically changed. And unfortunately, in many ways, many businesses and many conventions and things were not able to even happen, even virtually or even, at all. And so I'm curious, we're now getting into a place where things could get better. Hopefully this summer is going to start to look better. But there is real apprehension still for travel, kind of for traveling for leisure, and also traveling for those, the business conferences that we rely so heavily on. So just give me the kind of the lay of the land right now, what you're seeing and what we need to see to make things work a little better.
So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about what Jen just said. So the problem with downtown can be directly correlated to the problem with the convention center, because a lot of the businesses downtown rely on convention goers, tourists, university students, office workers. And so by virtue of all of that being wiped away, that exacerbates whatever problems have happened in downtown. And that is one of the reasons why we're pushing so hard. There's a press conference downtown is doing on Friday to get people to support coming back and sustaining businesses like Jen's and the restaurants while we get back up on our feet, because those days are coming. So my team books anywhere from 250 to 270 events a year that total $70 or $80 million in direct spending into Rhode Island. So we've lost over the past year and a half, $73 million in direct spending as a result of the closure of the convention center and the ability to not do these big events. However, I will say a watershed moment for us is when the governor did his press conference a couple of weeks ago. That was a turning point for us in a lot of ways. One, we're working with him to reopen the convention center. We actually, thanks to his intervention, I think we're going to open a little earlier than we had planned. We're actually looking at getting some August business back, which was off the table. So we're looking at that. September right now, we have a lot of events still on board. We work 2 to 3, 4 years in advance. So we do have business that is on the books. However, our whole industry shut down for like a year. So there were no hotels really working on meetings. There were no meeting planners working on meetings. My staff was so busy pulling business, there was nothing really to book. So we're all across the country, people who do what I do are behind the 8 ball because we don't have the level of business that we've normally had. One of the things we're asking people to do is we have a website called meetnri.com, and we're asking people to pledge to book a meeting, a convention, or a special event in Rhode Island over the next 2, 3, 4 years, because we need to start at home. It's like a buy local for meetings. So I do, however, feel like we're going to get back to some semblance of normalcy. The other big thing, and I talked to the governor about this last week, was when he allowed inter-state sports tournaments. That was huge. That saved $10 million worth of business for this spring and summer. We run the Rhode Island Sports Commission. We have a robust season of sports coming up. And that one decision was key for us to be able to sustain the spring and summer. That being said, in talking with our hotels, we feel like it's going to be kind of quiet midweek and really big on the weekends. We're already seeing hotel occupancy increase. We're up 105% over last March in Providence. I mean, it was like 10% in March 2020, but it's still a huge number. And we're seeing pent up demand really help push us over the line for the summer. And then we're doing things to try to bridge that gap for large meetings. We're creating a hybrid television studio so that if we had 3,000 people, we're going to have 500 in person, and we can broadcast out to people who might want to attend the conference. That's not ideal for heads and beds and hotel taxes, but it'll bridge the gap and it'll help us be competitive in the next 2 or 3 years. Because the other thing that happened is now it's a free-for-all. Everybody needs business. So we didn't used to fight with Baltimore or Boston or Miami. Now they want our stuff. So we have to be more competitive. We have to be smarter. We have to be more proactive. So those are some of the things that we're going to be doing. But I do feel like there's a sense of optimism in our industry. We have the Aloft is looking like it's ready to go soon. The Beatrice has been chomping at the bit. My friend Chris Marcella is developing a great food hall. The city of Providence is looking at the downtown core in new ways. So I think we're on the precipice of something really good. We just have to get there. And we'll be looking to the governor for some, advice and maybe a little help.
Kristen, I want to stick with you just for a quick follow-up to that is, what's the, when I think of what the way, the pitch for Rhode Island, I think of it as an affordable place, obviously a very beautiful place, certainly our beaches, things like that, a very convenient airport. But, when you talk about competing with a Boston or a Baltimore or wherever else, they've got similar offerings. So what's the sales pitch from your side to say, hey, don't go to Baltimore, come to Providence?
So there's a lot of things. One is affordability. We have a really great package. We also have a compact walkable downtown, which appeals to meeting and convention delegates. It's the quality of our restaurants. It's the convention center itself. It is the fact that we call it book a city, get a state. So you can stay in Providence and Warwick and go to your convention, and then you can go to Block Island after, or you can go to Newport, or you can go to Boston. We don't want you to, but you can. We actually fare really well in the meeting and convention market. We're what's called a second tier city. So our competitors are like your Hartfords, your Pittsburghs, people like that. And when you look at the quality of our offerings and you look at our location in the Northeast, which I think it's something like 20% of the US population lives within 300 miles of Rhode Island. So it's a really easy to get here. We're a much more affordable option than Boston or New York. And I would say we have a lot more to offer than downtown Hartford. So that's your pitch.
We all agree that Providence is a better place than Hartford. Fair enough. Governor, I want to come back to you. First, I'm curious, you've just listened to Jen and Kristen offer kind of their perspectives both on downtown Providence, but then the general kind of tourism and events in Rhode Island. What are you hearing that needs to either change, or what can you do for some of these small businesses that we're talking about right now?
Well, I think that decisions that I've been making relative to reopening quicker than what we had anticipated is all based, again, on the safety. So I want people to know that we're doing it in a safe way. So if you come in from out of state or you're in state, or we can confidently say that we're safe. And so that was a measurement. First time I heard the heads in the beds was when at a lieutenant governor's meeting out in Indianapolis. But I knew instinctively about the value of it because I coached so much AAU basketball and we traveled around the country. And we had hundreds of teams that came into those tournaments. The last tournament we played was down in Duke and North Carolina State and UNC, where 64 teams came in, merged into an area. And I know that I paid the bill for my team, right, in terms of lodging and transportation and that type of thing. So I know the value of the sports. It's not a coincidence that we got ahead of the deal in terms of announcing that we were dismantling the field hospital in Providence. We knew that was an important issue, and we knew it was coming, but rather than waiting a month and then start dismantling in June or July, we did want to save the August dates. That we think that there's a couple dates that Kristen's going to book in August, which are going to be great for the downtown. So you have this two things in Providence. One is you need to support, and when we lost the NCAA tournament this spring, that was a big loss to the basketball tournament to the downtown Providence. So we need those heads in the beds coming from out of state at the convention center or our different venues. But we also got to focus on what is happening on a normal day-to-day operation that's going to bring Jen business. So that's where we're focused on both sides of the coin. One is bringing people in from out of state to enjoy our community. There's no secret why I came out very early and said there was going to be music in Newport this summer. That resonated around the country and around the world because we are a destination, right? We are a destination in many ways. You can get to and from Newport without a car just by taking the ferry. It's a tremendous, asset that we have to connect our ocean with our downtown community in that way, and a very enjoyable trip. So my wife Susan and I have taken that a few times. No secret why I said there'd be parades on the 4th. Right. And no secret that I, said that, start. And by the way, it's immediate now, reserve your lunch or brunch for Mother's Day. We're in downtown Providence. So we've been signaling these things, and thankfully the media has picked up on it, that these are important phrases that we share around the state. And we've got some issues to do. We got to get people back into the office buildings in downtown Providence. And that's why right now we're doing site-specific vaccination strategies and taking in people who are interested in hosting the vaccine sites, whether it's in an office building downtown, whether it's in a church, or whether it's in a rec center, or whether it's with a local municipality. That's why we're vaccinating right now. I think I'm in a high school this afternoon in Cranston. We're vaccinating high school kids, but that's more than just keeping them safe, but as an economic component to that, Dan. Limos are rented, music venues are rented. You've got food that is being served at these proms. You've got issues in terms of music. How our music vendors and people have been starving right now for activity out there. So that's important that those proms go. And then the graduation night, we want to get every family, and every graduate vaccinated, so that when they go there, what do they do when they go to graduation? They have parties, they cater them at home, they go to restaurants, they buy flowers for the young ladies, they buy corsages for the guys. I mean, this is all related into our economy. So understanding the way that I do, there's not many people that are in my position today that have had the experience I've had, both as a small business owner, a nonprofit. I chaired and was the president of a Boys and Girls Club in our town, and also being a mayor for those years, walking through these crises. Yeah, I am aware of these things, and I know that what we're getting tremendous input from Jennifer and others, and Kristen and others. So we got to sit there and listen to all 39 cities and towns in terms of what that impacts. That's why I think this gift certificate or this gift card promotion and flood 50 to 100,000 shoppers over a confined time frame in June, a couple weeks. That's going to get people out. They're not even going to tip, Dan, what you want them to do, but they're going to buy more than $25 if they get out and shop. And then they're going to see these small businesses that they want to support. They're going to do it in a big way, and we're going to do a marketing strategy for that. So yeah, I think that yes, downtown Providence, like I said, there's a reason why I'm moving ahead of schedule, and we weren't supposed to open up until the first week of June, and the last time we talked, or May 15th. How much business is going to be done on Mother's Day? How much business is going to be done on Memorial Day? How many more things can Kristen book by hearing that there's going to be music in Newport this summer and having that out 6 weeks ago? People are starting to plan, and we're hearing the benefit of this advanced thinking that we've been putting on, and it's been good that we've been able to have the media respond to these positions that I'm taking and others are taking on behalf of our small businesses in the state.
Let me stick with you for a second, Governor. The one thing I got to give you credit for, and I don't envy this about you, is that every time you talk about certainly the beginning of your administration was shots in arms, right? You got to get the vaccine done, and then you had reporter me raising my hand and saying, "What about the healthcare merger?" Or what about education, Providence schools, things like that. So you've had a lot, and we've been drinking from a fire hose for a long time. One of the questions that we're getting a lot right now during this event is, what, aside from the existing businesses, what are you going to do to recruit new businesses here in Rhode Island? What should we expect to see? We're going to see kind of similar programs to the ones that Governor Raimondo used from commerce, or a different kind of variety of tools. I'm curious what we're going to see for those new businesses that we want to see start up or come here from the Baltimores of the world.
Well, first, the questions that go over the COVID, I stated there's more to Rhode Island than just COVID. And so that's why we're splitting out. We'll have another press conference tomorrow about those issues. I think we're having it in the state room, which is progress, to have that in the State House tomorrow. I think that's great progress. So yeah, we can't ignore everything just because of COVID, but we still have to be focused on the health and safety of the people in the state. But yes, I mentioned it, kind of alluded to, look, it's not a zero-sum game, Dan. You can do both. Yesterday's announcement of growing Fidelity, or an announcement that will hopefully help a small business open up. We had a great deal of businesses that that actually, you know, as the small business owners are you know, we're persistent, and we had many businesses open up in 2020, right? Those businesses weren't allowed to get involved in the grant programs until I came along, and this year businesses that opened up in 2020 were allowed to get qualify for the $5,000 grant. So my point is, we got to support businesses that are homegrown and that are that are opening up, like those small businesses that opened up in 2020. But we also can't forget the businesses that are currently in business. I think we tend to take that for granted, and we say, oh, they'll always be here, and then we don't have to focus on it. So it's a combination, and then it's also, like you just said, we did put dollars in the budget in terms of making sure that we had the ability to provide tax types of credits, tax incentives for the blue chip companies. I'm not backing off on that, because you need this combination. And what an unbelievable, right now, one of the top priority that I made in terms of a federal grant is the East Providence Harbor Port, where they're talking about a wind power education center, and also an ability to bring in product into Rhode Island that's supporting the wind industry. And there's also going to be a palladium there that's similar to what is in Boston, where we're going to have music right on the river there. And so I think you need to do both. You need to be very strategic about what the bigger projects are that you support, and then really go into this life science is a big deal right now. The wind is a big deal right now. And then we need to make sure that we set the environment up in a way that when these when these businesses come from the outside, that they're intentionally supporting our small business. For example, we're talking to a major possibility that may come into one of our communities in the state, and this one major company, we're actually saying, hey, one of the things we want you to do is we want you to support the small businesses with cash and support. So I think that you can balance it. I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and that if we're intentional about it, we're going to create a really good place for our small businesses in the state long term. And want to be great. I know I'll just end with this one, is that as Lieutenant Governor, incoming Lieutenant Governor, I was concerned about a company that was grading our small business friendliness called Thumbtack. And Thumbtack works with about 2 million small business, mostly service businesses. We've had them to our state through Lieutenant Governor's office 3 times. We convened small businesses, asked, why are we getting Fs? I know slow progress, but we're at a C now. We went from an F to a C. And my goal is on every metric to make sure that we're analyzing these grades that we're getting and understand why, and then answer that question so that that C becomes a B, becomes an A. And we're going to actually do a study on every single grading that comes into our state, whether it's CNBC or wherever it might be. And we're going to actually dig in, like I did with Thumbtack, and ask them the very questions that I asked Thumbtack. How come? And how do we change it? So yes, I think that the small businesses that we have, the small businesses that open up, as well as the larger business that we got, like Fidelity, and then new business in, it's a combination of all things, and it's not all 4 things, and it's not one over the other.
Jen, I want to go to you. You know, when we're coming up on about 10-ish minutes to go, so we'll move a little bit quickly, but you know, you have the governor's ear to some degree. You know, with the groups that you're a part of, but right now, you know, you have a lot of people listening. You have the governor here. What's one thing that you, as a small business owner, need in the next 12 months to, you know, enhance your business? I don't know if you want to hire another person or not, but to really kind of expand a bit in the next year or 2, let's say. What's one thing you could just really use?
I mean, kind of what we've already talked about, just bringing business back downtown, making downtown lively again. Even before COVID, we weren't as lively as we have been in the past. So revitalizing the entire city. I know there's the whole issue with Kennedy Plaza going on. You know, that's going to affect all of us directly. But as far as me personally, I'm just going to stick on my roller coaster ride and keep being in the governor's ear, every little thing. He knows I have no problem calling him or texting him on any issue. We actually, as a coalition, we discussed last night, we had our big meeting last night. So we meet bi-weekly. with a larger group of businesses, and then we meet weekly. But we're starting an education campaign. So kind of just what the governor was talking about. How can you get out there safely? How can you support small businesses safely? There's a lot of people that still haven't left the house in a year. There's clients I haven't seen in a year. And the changes that I've done to my business, you have seen, the governor has seen. I had Secretary Pryor here, and like I told him, there's a lot of changes that I implemented that I love, that I'm not going to stop. For us that are licensed by the Department of Health, it was a little easier to understand how not to spread COVID. And that's a part of the small businesses that needed to learn. But there's a lot of things that improvements, like when did you ever see so much being cleaned all over the world? So just that with the education campaign, we would love if any small business owners want to join us and help us with that. How do we tell people or make people feel secure, safe to come back out and live their lives?
And Jen, one of the things I love about the Small Business Coalition, one thing that I think has been really good about the last year in many ways is how much collaboration we're seeing. I think of it with the Small Business Coalition. I think of it on Federal Hill, where all these restaurants have been able to come together and really turn things around up there and save a lot of businesses. You're certainly seeing this in the hospitality sector as well. Talk a little bit about just what it means to have these kind of groups, because again, it's not just a bunch of people, complaining on Facebook Live. It's actually people turning their complaints or frustrations into action.
Yeah, like we heard that this weekend you couldn't get a reservation. All the restaurants were booked, which is great to hear. But what I love is I don't know what every small business needs. So we get to hear from all the different industries, not just beauty, barbershop industry, but I get to hear from all different industries and hear what their needs are and then convey that to the governor. A lot of times I get asked personally, how do you feel about minimum wage? How do you feel about this? And there's a lot of that doesn't affect me. So we need the rest of the businesses to be with us. We're more powerful together. So we need to hear, if your small business is out there struggling, you need to get involved, get on the calls. It's really easy. We've had small businesses join in just to listen the first couple of times. A lot of times we are very, strong-winded people. I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to be. So a lot of opinions, hard opinions. So we have businesses join in and listen in and then slowly start to tell us what their needs are. But if there's something that we don't know that is going on that you need help with, you need to let us know.
That's great. Kristen, and folks, if you want to send in questions, we'll ask a few. I've been actually asking these guys questions kind of throughout that are coming in through my text message, email, through the Q&A section here. We only have a couple of minutes left. Kristen, one thing that I think you can't totally control, but is really important to the broader kind of tourism economy is water fire. So are we going to see water fire this year in Providence?
The answer is a solid probably. So there's two issues at play here. One is, and we've been doing a lot of work with the Department of Health, is to have these large scale events, people need to be vaccinated. Yeah. We want to open, but we, like the governor said, we want to open safely. So for us to be able to really get back to our lives, people just need to be vaccinated. If you want to go to wrestling at the Dunk, it's going to be a lot easier if you're vaccinated. We know. If you want to go to Broadway at PPAC, it's going to be a lot easier for you, and we can open quicker if you go and get vaccinated. So, I mean, I think of it as a civic responsibility. I also think of it as a necessity for my industry. So that is my little plug for that. And that certainly affects water fire. The other issue with water fire is funding. So when you can't do what you do for a year and a half, there's a lot of problems that come with that. So they've lost a lot of institutional knowledge by people getting other jobs. The braziers were pulled out for the dredging of the river. They've never come back in. you know, we have to, there's extra infrastructure that's going to be needed if we want to do this safely. So I was talking with Secretary Pryor yesterday, and we are working on a way to help Waterfire both financially and structurally to come back. And they are more than ready to come back. So that's going to be a big priority. I feel like we've made a lot of headway in almost everything we need to do for tourism recovery. The piece that's missing is these large scale events. And we're working with the governor's team and with Commerce on those things.
And I want to shout out to my lovely partner, Nora, who we went on our first date at Waterfire. We've probably been on 150 more dates at Waterfire. So we're really looking forward to that as well. As we start to wrap up, Governor McKee, one of the major other questions, and you've been answering this constantly over the last couple of weeks. I want to give you 2 minutes to answer it now. Is, you know, we are getting people who are businesses who are a little bit concerned about your proposal to tax some of the PPP loans. So give us sort of the general overview of your thinking behind it. And I know, you know, it's a very small percentage of businesses that might be affected by this, but give us the sort of explanation for your thoughts behind taxing the profits of PPP loans.
So it's a budget issue initially, Dan, right? It's a balancing budget issue. I've said, you know, Washington is printing the money, Rhode Island doesn't print the money, so it's a budget issue in terms of how you're going to balance the budget. We protected over almost 90% of the businesses took the PPP loan. So when people say that we're not focused on the small businesses, that's just not accurate. And every single business that made a profit last year is getting some form of tax relief, regardless if they borrowed $8-9 million, like some of the businesses that are concerned. And they got the right to lobby what they're talking about, but it is a budget issue. You've got to determine how you're going to balance the budget. It's a $70 million issue in terms of the loans that were taken over $150,000. But I also want to remind that 100% of the businesses that made money last year received at least $10,000 of a state tax credit. So everyone received that tax benefit, and 90% of the businesses received full benefit of the federal guidelines. So it's a budget issue. The General Assembly can work through that. It's also an issue of where you're going to invest your dollars. Is it better to be spending $70 million to help support small businesses in the state of Rhode Island, or is it better to spend that $70 million to help people who made a significant amount of money during the pandemic? These are the businesses that are really echoing the concern. These businesses made several hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. That's not the small businesses that we're trying to talk about, that we're talking about today. So I would say if the concerns there, call our office. We'll try to explain it. We had a relatively sizable group that was not understanding that we had protected 90% of the small businesses with the ceiling at $150,000. Again, remember, we're not taxing the loan, right? We're not taxing the loan. Businesses that borrowed a lot of money and didn't make a profit, they're not paying any taxes, right? Businesses who borrowed a lot of money and made a great deal of money, they get exempted up to the $150,000. But above that, we think it's a fair thing for the people who made a great deal of money during a pandemic to pay their fair share of taxes. And the other piece, Dan, on the thing, and it's a very complicated issue for the public to understand, but there's major corporations that had more than 500 employees that didn't get PPP loans, and they're paying on their first dollar of taxes, Rhode Island taxes. There's many small businesses that didn't take out PPP loans that are paying on their first dollar, and they don't get that full exemption that if somebody who borrowed on PPP. And there's many taxpayers, neighbors of ours, that are working hard on their jobs, whether it's laboring jobs or office jobs, or professional jobs. They are paying on their first dollar of taxes. So I think that I'm comfortable where we are. If the General Assembly wants to move it, that's up to them. But at this point in time, we took care of the overwhelming majority of people who borrowed on a PPP loan. And I think I want the public to know that. This is not an attack on every small business that took a PPP loan. I mean, it's 90% of our businesses were fully protected in terms of what they borrowed, if it was $150,000 or less.
We have made almost perfect time. Governor, Jen, Kristen, I really want to thank you so much. I have this terrible habit of coming up with ideas on the fly, and I'm going to propose one now as well. what I'd love to do, I mean, we've seen so many people kind of stick with us throughout this last hour. And what I'd love to be able to do is email everybody, a Google Doc to say, what are your ideas for small businesses? What would you like to see? And we're happy to hand those off. We'll publish them in Roadmap, my daily newsletter. We'll send them off to the governor's office. We feel like those are the right things to do. So we'd love to do that. And Brian, I just want to bring you in for the closing remarks, because CLA has sponsored us and has been wonderful throughout kind of planning this event. So Brian, come on in and close us out.
Thanks a lot, Dan. What a great hour. I mean, that went by really quick. And it started with the word resilience. And I'll tell you what, after listening to Jen and Kristen, we're resilient. I give you guys credit. So way to go. Governor, Rhode Island 2030, make an offer to you. CLA is ready to help, ready, willing, and able to help. Please reach out and we will do what we can. But tremendous hour. Dan, great job. And we look forward to taking part in the resurgence of Rhode Island here as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Yep.
Have a
Thank you,
good day.
Brian, for hosting.